Okay, so yep, there's Anthony waving. I'm Raul right here. So Anthony, who's right now working with American Hook Wrestling, one of our great friends and our partners. So John Strickland is the head coach there. Very authentic catch wrestling. You know, the lineage of Frank Gotch, which also goes back to England, right? So legit stuff. Catch Wrestling Alliance. We really only deal with legit catch wrestling. So uh, that's why Anthony's here. You helped out a grappler in his grappling match against a known leg locker. So can you tell us about how it went and what happened?
Yeah. So this guy named Jonah Nassif at my gym, he is a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and he also has a wrestling background. He had a feature match at a submission grappling and jiu-jitsu showcase called Sub Spectrum. It's run by this guy named Jordan Peitzman. Definitely recommend checking out that promotion. It's called Sub Spectrum. They're doing really good stuff in the world of submission grappling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as far as trying to highlight and showcase up-and-coming grapplers, mostly in the Midwest. But yeah, he had a feature match on that card in the prelims, and the guy that he was going against, both me and his other coach had seen compete before, and we knew that he's a very good leg locker. He's very good at leg submissions, and so I'm pretty good at leg locks myself, both from a jiu-jitsu and catch wrestling perspective, and so my friend Jonah asked me to be his coach and corner for the competition. Basically, just had me come in for 2 weeks and leg lock the crap out of him, and just have him defend that. Um, and we sort of formulated a game plan. Us being the more dominant wrestler with jiu-jitsu skills versus the more jiu-jitsu guy with a known leg lock arsenal. He ended up winning in overtime by points 5-2, and it was a really great showing on his end. He's not a catch wrestler himself. He's just sort of a wrestler plus jiu-jitsu kind of guy. Um, but I'm a catch wrestler myself, so I certainly used my catch wrestling knowledge in concert with my jiu-jitsu knowledge to help him get the W.
Cool. So then, would you say then you like you use like wrestling or catch wrestling fundamentals then to like just pass the guard, or how did that kind of go about where the leg locker wasn't able to use his leg locks?
Yeah, as far as guard passing goes, we definitely had a strategy in mind coming in, because we knew that the most dangerous part was going to be engaging with this guy's legs when he pulls guard, and just trying to get past the legs so that we can get to a side control or a mount, and then start hunting submissions from there. Um, I felt a little I felt pretty qualified in this respect, as far as the guard passing goes, to coach him on this. Um, what we basically did was we implemented a pressure passing game against this guy, um, with our head lead. Okay, so the way that I tend to differentiate between types of guard passing is there is head lead or upper body lead passing, and then there's lower body passing. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, a good example of upper body lead passing would be the over under pass. If you've ever seen the over under pass in jiu-jitsu, this is a great example. Yeah, coming right here, under one leg, over another leg. Another example would be like a double over pass, a double leg pass. Another example would be like a double under kind of pass. So the first contact is made by our head and our arms versus his legs, right? And that was the style of passing that I had us use. A leg lead pass, a good example of that would be like a knee cut pass, right? Or any kind of really standing pass, because we're coming in and we're leading, we're making first contact with our knee and our leg first, right? And our upper body is more upright, right? And so a lot of times you'll hear people call knee slice passing or certain types of leg lead passing pressure passing. And you can implement pressure from that type of passing, but from my opinion, and it's just very clear to me that when you lead with your head when you're passing guard, when you lead with your upper body, your legs are kicked back and driving off the mat, right? You're pushing off the mat, driving into your opponent. And so any kind of upper body lead passing is inherently always going to generate more pressure on your opponent than a lower body lead passing. You can do it, if you've got a really tight knee cut kind of pass, you can generate pressure. A good example of that would be like Rafael Lobato Jr. He does that kind of thing. He's known for his pressure passing. And he certainly does have good pressure passing with that kind of style of passing where he's postured upright. But when I'm really, really trying to generate pressure, really, really trying to take it to my opponent, I kick the legs back, drive my feet into the mat, and I lead with my upper body. And so that was our game plan. The great thing about this is our opponent being a leg locker, when you pass like this, your legs are also kicked back out of range, right? So if I'm knee cut passing, leading with my leg, I can generate pressure there, but I'm giving the leg right off the bat, right? That's what he wants. I'm giving him contact with my leg, and though he might not be able to leg entangle right away, if he's able to off balance me a little bit, he's gonna be able to put a leg in, entangle my legs, and then he's off to the races, right? So this is what you want to avoid. And this is a common mistake I see a lot of people make when they're facing leg lockers and they're not trying to engage in the leg game themselves. They're trying to pass. Is they'll lead with their leg, and that's just you're very, very close to giving the leg locker free shots on your leg. And a lot of people think that when you lead with your head, when you lead with the upper body, that you're somehow that it's just you're inherently going to put yourself like in a triangle choke, or you're going to inherently put yourself like in a guillotine choke or some kind of submission, which is completely untrue. If you know what you're doing and you lead with your upper body, if you stay safe and stay disciplined and do the technique correctly, you're going to be fine. Right now, if you mess up, and your opponent gets a move off on you, gets some kind of off balance on you, yes, you can get put in a submission, but you can get it put in a submission anywhere. Same, like I was saying, if you lead with your leg, a knee cut, and you mess up, you got a leg locker, he's going to put you in a leg lock, right? So I don't really buy that idea that going in head first is somehow more submission risk. Now if I was going against somebody who wasn't a leg locker and I knew had good upper body submissions like triangle chokes and arm bars and stuff like that, then yeah, maybe I might lead with my leg first because I know he's generally not going to attack it and he's going to be better at attacking the upper body. So that was my logic going in. And kudos to Jonah. He executed perfectly. Guy never came close to a leg entanglement at all the entire match. There were a couple, he got us into a kind of like bicep slicer kind of thing with his legs, which we defended. And then on the feet, he had kind of that standing John Jones shoulder lock going, but we defended all those perfectly. And we ended up passing the guard multiple times, getting to mount multiple times, and then almost getting the back once as well. We also got a sweep too. Our opponent actually snuck a takedown in on us, which was a little surprising. He had a little bit better wrestling on the feet than we expected, but as soon as he took us down, we were able to get a reversal right away. So yeah, my game plan worked to a T. I saw our opponent compete a couple times, didn't really know much about him, didn't know much tape on him, but just sort of my catch wrestling principles that I had in my mind versus guard players like this worked out great. Not being afraid to sort of think outside the box, not buying into sort of classic jiu-jitsu myths. If you do this, you're going to get submitted automatically, that kind of thing. And it just worked out great. I couldn't be happier with it.
Yeah, cool, man. You brought up a bunch of great things, right? It's like, yeah, if you like, you don't necessarily have to know too much about your opponent if you kind of stick to your catch wrestling fundamentals, right? And then the other thing that I think I've also heard a lot about, leading with your head or whatever is the whole triangle choke thing. But yeah, I think you're totally right about where it's like, oh, if you're doing it right, then you don't really have that triangle, or they can't really get that triangle on you, right? So let's go ahead and talk about the the whole fundamentals thing. So you said you didn't really know much about the guy, but with regards to like your approach to the guy, it was really just kind of stick to the whole wrestling fundamental approach.
Yeah, yeah. I personally, I don't like to scout opponents too hard, right? And that's because I'm more focused on what I'm doing than what my opponent's doing, right? If you get too much in the mindset of thinking about what your opponent's going to do, it sort of puts you in this reactionary defensive kind of state, which I don't like. And everything you're thinking about is stuff that my opponent could potentially do to me, right? And I find that the more people do that, the more it tends to manifest on the mat. And it's just, they might not get submitted by their opponent, but it's just the entire time it's just them defending against their opponent, you know.
Mm.
Um, so that's my approach, and that's a very sort of like wrestling approach. I do find in jiu-jitsu a lot of times guys are trying to map out everything that their opponents does so they can plan for every possible scenario. But the fact of the matter is when you're in a competition, in a match, you can't plan for everything. It's war. You know what I mean? It's better to just have your principles that you're going to stick to so that when you're tired and it's intense and it's coming down the line, you're not having to stop and think a bunch. Because if you do that, that's a that's a window of opportunity that your opponent's going to be able to take and use against you to get ahead on you. So it's good to have, your one sword, your one shield that you're going into battle with, and you know how to use, a bunch of different ways, than to have a utility belt with a bunch of different weapons that you have to bust out for every single individual scenario. It just doesn't hold up to the intensity and the sort of fatigue factor, and just the general sort of mystery factor when it comes to your opponent. You can watch a bunch of tape on your opponent, but maybe in between the time that they last competed and you're facing them now, they could be a completely different grappler. And so that's why I don't like to scout too much. Is just it's war. It's when you're out there, it's war. And it's it gets compared to chess. It gets compared to a math problem, but it's not. We're doing a combat sport. It's physical combat, and you can't plan for everything. You know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and that's the thing too. That like, well, I guess that's one of the reasons why I want to talk to you about this, like about your experience too. Is like because I feel like that's my experience. Rolling at 10th Planet and stuff here in West LA. You get some people who are well known online for doing leg locks and all that. They're showing all their leg locks online, and they got a lot of fans. Um, but yeah, using those wrestling fundamentals. And that's the thing. I didn't know that. I didn't know. I don't know all these people. So, but yeah, I just go in, trying to do my thing. Actually, a lot of times I just think, I want to pin this guy, and then yeah, I end up passing their guard, and then later I find out like, oh man, these guys are really well known for doing well in these competitions and all that. Um, so yeah, I think that or I think that's the point that I really want to reiterate to anybody listening. It's like, yeah, like kind of what you just said. It's like, if you kind of stick to the like your sword and your shield, those being like the fundamentals, you end up not even having to deal with these leg entanglements, right? But then yeah, if you kind of go more on the side of like, oh, what are they doing, or what do they know, or I got to learn all the ways to get out of every single leg lock you've seen them do, then it's gonna give you more anxiety, right? And then you probably end up running more or whatever from these people, right? And then, but for catch wrestling, really, that the one of the principles is like you want to go in there and you want to get it onto the ground, and even if you're underneath, you shouldn't necessarily be scared or anxious because you should know a lot of these reversals, right? To get back on top or submit them from the bottom. Not necessarily mean when I say bottom, I don't mean like being on your back, but more like turtle position, right? Yes, I think that's one of the things I really wanted to make sure that people listening just understood, and I think you're one of the best people to talk about that. Do you have any other thoughts on this subject?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's tough to memorize the dictionary, right? It's
Yeah.
like you can't memorize every single potential reaction to every single potential reaction because it's constantly moving, it's happening fast, and people are coming up with new stuff every day, you know, and your opponent might do some stuff that they don't usually do in order to confuse you, you know. And so to take that sort of approach, you know, it's good. It's good. It's definitely better than not doing anything. But in my opinion, the better approach is to focus more on what you're doing. You know, it's definitely good to know what your opponent's strengths are, where they're strong. You know, maybe some techniques you see them using consistently over and over, and be prepared for that. But we mostly want to be focusing on what we're going to do to our opponent. You know, and when Jonah brought me in, he's like, "Why don't you leg lock me?" But it quickly turned into like, "Look, I don't want to spend all this time uh, trying to put leg locks on you and having you get out of leg locks because if we do too much of that, the entire match is just going to be that." So I want to focus. I want to spend some time doing that, but I also want to spend a lot of our time focusing on our passing because we know we're going to be on top most of the time. We know we're either going to get the takedown or he's going to pull guard, and we know he's going to try to go for leg locks from guard. And so, you know, staying out of leg locks and defending him is great, but ultimately, in order to win the match, we got to pass that guard. And then our strategy was to go for either an arm triangle submission or a rear naked choke submission, whichever came first. You know, we were mostly hunting the arm triangle. That was his strength, and you know, it's a good submission that'll just keep us on top. You know, so we didn't end up getting the arm triangle finish, but everything else that we did leading up to that worked to a T, and yeah, and it yeah, that's pretty much it. I can't really say much more about it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, cool. I think that's I think we said like the main points that I really want people to understand. So with that being said, I mean, is there any way people can reach out to you if they have any questions?
Yeah,
Are you like on
I would
Instagram or anything?
I would say yeah, you can find me on Instagram. My name is Luchador, Luchador 1764. You can also find me on Facebook. Just my name, Anthony Pacheck, Pacheck. I don't have a Twitter or anything like that. But yeah, yeah, if you have any questions or if you're interested in American hook wrestling, you can feel free to contact me.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for spending time with us today.
Yeah, thank you, man.